Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 73, To Master the Unexpected. The episode begins back in Pallet Town, with 3 weeks left of the Pokemon League, and Ash and Brock trying their best to train. Well, that's apparently what they were doing, but in reality, they were really just watching TV of a Pokemon League match between a random dude and Bruno of the Elite Four with his Hitmonchan. The Elite Four were essentially the strongest 4 trainers in a region, with the exception of the champion, but you should know that by now. Bruno just ordered his Hitmonchan to use Thunder Punch, but then, unfortunately for Ash and Brock, Misty turned off the TV and demanded that they get training, unaware that they were training. Come on, Misty, it should be obvious. Ash and Brock defend themselves, stating that they were analyzing Bruno's battles with tapes from the Pokemon League, and Brock clarifies that they were trying to learn his battle secrets so that Ash could use them. When Misty, however, asks Ash and Brock what those battle secrets were, they're unable to come up with any good answer, indicating that they really just cared about watching the battle and not the actual skills. Misty is obviously disappointed by this, but not really surprised, as she's sarcastically like, well damn, they must be pretty secret if even you guys didn't know them. Ash then argues that he didn't need to learn Bruno's techniques from the TV anyway, he could just go up to him and ask him himself if he could find out where he was. Brock and Misty obviously deny this, knowing Bruno's strength, and how he likely wouldn't waste his time with someone like Ash, who hadn't even competed in a Pokemon League yet. But Ash argues that Bruno would in fact train him, he just needs to find his location. Suddenly, Ash's mom comes in the house and is like, yo, I know where to find Bruno. Ash is like, there's no way that you know. That would be way too convenient. How would you know anything about fucking Bruno? But apparently she does know, as she reveals that he was probably on his secret training place known as Mount Hideaway. Ash decides to believe his mom and decides to go with his friends to try and find this mountain, and he even declares his mom not to make dinner because he would likely be there for a long time with all the training he was going to do. But I think he should be caring about dinner right now because he immediately started complaining that he didn't have food along with Brock as soon as they started walking. They can eventually see the mountain in the distance, and Misty states how it was likely only about 7 miles away at this point, but by this time, Ash and Brock were fucking exhausted at this, they needed food, man. They had collapsed on the ground in exhaustion at this point, but despite that, they were trying to still play it off as though they were good, and Misty was the one who was tired, suggesting that they should only take a rest because Misty was probably getting tired. Misty obviously realizes this, but she decides to let Ash and Brock have their way, as she sarcastically says, alright, let's find a place where I can rest, you goddamn bastards. Trying to protect your masculinity. But anyways, Ash and the gang do eventually find a spot to rest, being a random old lady's little shop. The old lady informs them that some people have been trying to steal her meatballs that she makes, but she was still willing to give Ash and Brock some of them when they complained about how hungry they were. While Ash and Brock eagerly eat the meatballs, Ash compliments how there was fucking a lot of muskrat in the meatballs. What the fuck, man? Muskrat meatballs? Misty obviously scoffs at this, being like, man, you guys can eat anything. I don't know how you can eat that shit. But Brock agrees with Ash on the other hand. Man, why the fuck does he love muskrat so much? The old lady then begins to do some chores with her broom. Man, is she fucking sweeping outside? Is she Mr. Mime or what? And Ash takes the opportunity to ask the old lady if she knows where Bruno was, and the old lady just says that she doesn't recognize the name. Man, maybe Ash's mom was full of shit after all. Just then, some wind chimes start rattling, and this informs the old lady that someone was walking nearby, and Ash and the gang look out and spot none other than Team Rocket, who were running away with sacks. The old lady immediately rushes after them and tries to hit Team Rocket with her broom, but she fucking fails, leading Team Rocket to simply notice her, and they do their motto, actually to introduce themselves for once, because they didn't know the old lady. Meowth knows they don't have time to dilly-dally though, and somehow makes Team Rocket fast-forward through their motto with a fucking remote control. It's Pokemon, we're not going to question it. We can just reason that he essentially just forced them to do it by yelling or some shit. And Jessie and James obviously complain, wanting to always do the motto, and Jessie complains that her mouth hurts, and James says he bit his tongue due to being sped up. But I mean, you guys fucking weren't sped up, quit claiming that you were. There's no way that was possible. When Ash and the gang catch up with the old lady, they question what's in the bags, and Jessie and James argue that it was simply food that they had scavenged for on land, as since Ash and the gang had beaten them so many times, they'd chosen to leave Team Rocket and go live in the wilderness in shame. Meowth, not understanding the fact that Team Rocket was trying to come up with a lie, then questions what they meant by getting food off the land, when he reveals that they stole the lady's meatballs, which obviously they didn't scavenge off the land. Team Rocket obviously get pissed off at Meowth for dumbly revealing their secret. And as punishment, the furious old lady smacks Team Rocket with her broom, causing them to run away and drop the sacks of meatballs in the process. Ash then decides to ask the old lady about the mountain to hopefully learn more about Bruno and why he was there, if he was there. The old lady reveals that the mountain was known for having a whole bunch of overgrown onyx on it. Fucking Dynamax before Dynamax? But no, she just adds that they're supposed to be gentle. Ash and Misty both wonder what the fuck could make these onyx grow especially big, and Brock states his theory that he believes it was likely due to the fertile soil on the mountain making them grow bigger. Fucking soil making rocks grow bigger? What the hell are you talking about? Ash and the gang then leaves the old lady's house and finally begins their trek up the mountain, and they go for fucking hours and hours and hours, leading Brock to simply complain again that he was hungry and that they haven't even seen any onyx yet. He was clearly excited to see the onyx, which grow bigger because of fertilizer, huh, Brock? Anyways, Ash and the gang then come across what Ash believes is a road, but Brock counters that it's likely Pokemon tracks of a huge Pokemon, suggesting an onyx. Bro is really obsessed with those onyxes. Like, what are you gonna do, replace the one that you currently have? Fortunately for Brock, an Onyx actually does show up. He was right, it was Onyx tracks. Ash and the gang immediately start running in fear. Yes, even Brock is now suddenly in fear. And Misty's like, we're gonna fucking die, oh shit, oh shit. And I mean, rightfully so, because this Onyx was definitely one of the giant Onyxes, because it's way bigger than fucking Brock's. Ash and the gang are about to fucking die by Onyx, but then in a Deus Ex Machina moment, a voice calls out to them and instructs them to hide behind a nearby rock, which Ash and the gang do, allowing the Onyx to miss them and run right past them. Ash and Brock are like, man, we should really thank whoever that voice was. They just saved our asses. When suddenly, the source of the voice reveals himself to be none other than Bruno, much to Ash and Brock's amazement and shock. Although Misty questions who he is, not having seen him before. But didn't you see him on the TV when you turned it off? Whatever, who cares? Bruno simply clarifies if Ash and the gang were unharmed, and when they confirm, he immediately just tries to walk away. But Ash and Brock begin following him. This leads Bruno to get suspicious, like, why the fuck are you guys following me? Accusing them of being stalkers or some shit. And Brock is instantly offended that Bruno would think that they would try and dishonor him like that, and immediately gets on his knees to apologize, and explain the fact that they weren't stalkers, but they instead wanted to see Bruno's training routine, and they wanted him to train them. When Bruno questions why, Brock reasons that Ash was simply way too fucking dumb and stupid to be able to train on his own, or come up with any of his own techniques, so he needed Bruno's help. Ash gets kind of pissed off at Brock's insults, but Brock simply motions that Ash should try bagging as well. Ash obliges, because at the end of the day, he cares more about training than he did about even his ego. And he kneels down, and proceeds to beg Bruno to train him. When Bruno has no reaction, however, this leads Brock to assume that Ash wasn't bagging hard enough, and he fucking forcefully pushes him down to the point where he falls on his face. Damn, Brock, you must really love forcing people on their knees. Anyways, Bruno is likely getting annoyed with the constant bagging, and he agrees, under the condition that Ash and the gang did absolutely everything they told him to. Despite this potentially turning them into his slaves, Ash and Brock agree, desperate to do some training. The first bit of training that Bruno has Ash and Brock do is filling buckets with water and then holding them despite their weight. Misty questions what the fuck this was supposed to do, with Ash and Brock revealing their theory that it was probably to help with balance as well as strength. Ash manages to successfully hold up these buckets for quite a long time actually, but he eventually falls, and as a result, the bucket lands on Misty's head, soaking her in water and pissing her the fuck off. But Ash doesn't care about Misty being pissed off, and simply states that the problem was not his outer balance, but his inner balance, as he wasn't focused. Yeah, whatever you say, Ash, I think you're just clumsy. The next bit of training that Bruno has Ash and Brock do is chopping wood, explaining that it was supposed to help with their grip. Ash actually manages to successfully chop wood somehow, but unfortunately for Misty, the wood goes flying into her face and knocks her off her rock, leading her to rudely complain to Ash that he needs to get an inner grip. Get it? Inner grip? Instead of outer grip, because, the exercise had to do with grip. Ash simply ignores Misty's insult, stating that it was her fault for putting her head in the way, and Bruno then tells Ash about the third exercise, which was carrying a whole bunch of rocks up a mountain, which was supposed to help him connect with his inner nature, but I don't know if rocks are the first thing I think about when it comes to nature. Unfortunately for Ash, though, he quickly fails this as he slips down the mountain while carrying. Good job. Bruno begins to get a bit tired of Ash's failures, and was getting a little bored, so while he instructs Ash to do the next training lesson, which was to peel bark off a twig, he decides to start cooking a meal. Ash actually manages to complete this training task successfully for once, but unfortunately for him, all Bruno does with the twig is take it, break it in two, and begin to use it as chopsticks, and proceed to enjoy his meal all by himself. Ash and the gang obviously question what fucking lesson this lesson was supposed to teach them, with Bruno panicking, since there obviously was no lesson behind this one, he just wanted to eat, and he says that the lesson was to always pack a fork. Ash is obviously disappointed by this lesson, like he wanted genuine lessons, and this leads Misty to comment her belief that if this lesson was all just a fake one so that Bruno could eat, maybe even all the lessons were just fake, and yeah, they could have been, like maybe he just wanted Ash and the gang to collect water for him, or chop some firewood for his fire so he could make food. Misty points this out, but Brock absolutely denies her, still in belief that there's no way Bruno would try and play them like that, and wants to prove it to Ash and the gang by testing Bruno with a test of his own. He decides to pick up a stick and claims that if Bruno was really a great trainer, then he would be able to sense that Brock was about to hit him with the stick, and he would deflect it. Brock envisions this in his head, obviously with the pure belief that Bruno would be able to do it, because, Bruno was an Elite Four member. There's no way that he didn't have the skills to sense a fucking stick behind his back. Anyways, he decides to go through with this, putting Bruno's speed and reaction time to the test, as he proceeds to hit him with a stick from behind his back. Unfortunately for Brock, though, his image of Bruno is heavily damaged after this, because Bruno fails to do absolutely anything, as he was too distracted eating his food. This results in a huge-ass goose egg bump on his head being formed, and he simply claims, man, that fucking hurt. Brock is absolutely crushed at Bruno's failure, as he remarks that maybe Misty was right after all, and Bruno was just nothing but a phony. It's because of this that Ash and the gang all confront Bruno on if there was truly secrets that he had, and if the lessons were legit. But Bruno, unfortunately for them, simply just puts a band-aid on his head, and confirms the fact, and Misty's assumption, that all the lessons were in fact fake. Brock and Ash refuse to believe him, stating that there must be some reason why he was able to get as strong as an Elite Four member, and they weren't. But Bruno simply argues that it had nothing to do with secrets that he did, but rather his Pokémon. Since his Pokémon were simply stronger than Ash and Brock's, he was stronger. It was that simple. He adds that that was the entire reason why he was on the mountain, which was to catch one of the rumored giant onyxes, because instead of training, he could just catch one of these strong giant onyxes, and boom, he would be golden. as Ash and Brock fall to their knees, this time not to beg Bruno, but in utter disappointment with both him and the fact that they did all those training lessons for nothing. It's revealed that Team Rocket are back, and they're spying on Ash and the gang and Bruno, and after hearing Bruno's plan to capture a giant Onyx, they decide to try and catch one as well, so that they can be as strong as Bruno is. Hey, at least they believed that only your Pokemon made you stronger. I think they'd be Bruno's perfect students. Anyways, Team Rocket managed to successfully find some Onyx tracks and decide to follow them, although Meowth has doubts that they'll actually be able to catch the Onyx, stating that it was probably too big for them to do a sneak attack, which is what they usually tried to do. But Jesse and James rebuttal that although they couldn't do a sneak attack, they had a weapon that they didn't usually use, therefore they had an unexpected weapon. Meowth gets excited at this, as he's sick of Team Rocket just using the same old tricks like, missiles and, oh wait, all Team Rocket planned to use was a missile. Meowth rebuttals how this wasn't unexpected at all, but Jesse and James simply ignore him, much to his dismay, as he calls the unexpected weapon an unexpected joke instead. Fire roast, Meowth. Team Rocket then reached the end of the Onyx track they were following and realized that must mean the Onyx must now be underground, so they eagerly wait for it as they point their missile at it. As soon as the gigantic Onyx comes out of the ground, though, Jesse and James and Meowth all immediately freeze in panic. It was a lot fucking bigger than they were expecting, but what did you expect when you heard the term giant Onyx, bro? James and Meowth obviously want to get the fuck out of there, having instant regret, but Jessie, being the one holding the missile, is like, no, we need that fucking Onyx, guys, let's get him. As she proceeds to fire the missile, sending multiple directly at Onyx's face. This causes a huge-ass noise, which alerts Ash and the gang, who were currently walking through the mountain by themselves, having left Bruno due to him being a fucking asshole and lying to them. But when they hear the noise, they immediately run to where it came from. Meanwhile, back with Team Rocket, the missiles were doing absolutely fucking nothing against the Onyx, except making it mad. So, Jesse and James resorted to Plan B as they began running away from the Onyx, which proceeded to chase them. Thankfully for Jesse and James, they managed to find a cave, so they decided to hide in it. But then, the Onyx suddenly grows even bigger. I'm sure it's due to the fertilized soil, Brock. And with this even extra height, manages to tackle the cave, which applies enough force to start destroying the cave with Team Rocket still inside. So they all shout for help, and thankfully, that's when Ash and the gang show up in a Deus Ex Machina moment. Thankfully, despite Team Rocket being cunts, Ash and the gang still don't want them to die or anything, so they decide to help them out by battling the Onyx, trying to take it down. Brock decides to send out his own Onyx to battle it. Misty decides to send out her Staryu, and she motions Ash to send out one of his water Pokemon as well, as since Onyx was weak against water, they could use more than one water Pokemon. So, Ash decides to send out his Squirtle. Brock's Onyx is the first one to launch an attack against the Onyx, but unfortunately, it stands no chance, as the other Onyx is just way bigger, and it ends up just meaning that Brock's Onyx gets hurt more, as it just bangs itself into the other Onyx's rocks, causing its own rocks to get scraped. With Brock's tackle failing, Misty decides to have her Staryu use Water Gun, but despite it being a water attack, it doesn't seem to do much against the Onyx, so Misty orders that Ash get his Squirtle to use the Water Gun as well, adding that if maybe both of them did it, then it would be stronger, so that's what Ash does, as Squirtle and Staryu both fire a Water Gun, which actually does manage to harm the Onyx, to the point where it stops attacking the cave where Team Rocket was. Jesse and James swiftly take this opportunity to run away, almost leaving Meowth behind, as he was so scared that he didn't even realize that the Onyx was now gone. But thankfully, Jesse and James manage to snap him back to reality as they run off, meaning Meowth is able to run off with them as well. In the time it took for Team Rocket to run away, though, Onyx had been able to recover from the Water Gun attack, and uses its tail to hit literally fucking everybody. It hits Ash's Pokemon, Misty's Pokemon, Brock's Pokemon, knocking them down, but it also even is big enough to hit Team Rocket as they ran away, sending them blasting off, much to their dismay. The Onyx wasn't satisfied with simply knocking out Ash's Pokemon, though. He wanted to kill Ash and the gang as well, so it whaps its tail at the cliff that they were standing on, and the cliff breaks. And although Misty and Brock managed to jump to a higher cliff in time, Ash doesn't, causing Ash to fall to the ground as the Onyx approaches him. He was about to fucking die, but then his Pikachu comes in a Deus Ex Machina moment and uses Thunderbolt to protect him, much to everyone's delight, who was panicking heavily at this point. However, due to Onyx being a rock type, and it not being a gym battle, the Thunderbolt does absolutely fucking nothing against the Onyx, meaning Onyx continued to bring its tail down on Ash and Pikachu. Pikachu tried its best to try fighting again, but Ash immediately pulled him into his arms, stating how it was useless for Pikachu to try and attack with an electric attack, so he would rather Pikachu just give up and die in his arms, so that they could die with one last happy memory as they hugged each other. Damn, that's fucking dark. Since this episode loves Deus Ex Machina moments, though, Bruno comes in at the last second before Ash and Pikachu are crushed by the Onyx, and jumps down from a nearby cliff, picking them up and saving them, bringing them to the cliff where Brock and Misty were now standing. Bruno then instructs Ash and the gang to return all their Pokemon to their Pokeballs so that they didn't get injured by the Onyx, and states that he'll take care of the Onyx by himself. He didn't need their help. Ash and the gang questioned what Pokemon he was going to use, with Ash suggesting that he would use one of his fighting types due to him being the Fighting Type Elite Four member, but Bruno states how he wasn't going to use a Pokemon. Ash and the gang gasped in disbelief. I mean, did Bruno really think he could take on a giant Onyx all by himself? I mean, sure, he's the Fighting Type Elite Four member, but I don't know if even he has enough fighting skills to attack the Onyx. He proves this, as all he really does is begin dodging, as the Onyx begins thrashing its tail at him, and he manages to dodge every hit by jumping on a nearby rock, which only causes the rocks to get smashed. While he's jumping, he tries to question the Onyx on why he was acting so angry. Like, Ash and the gang did nothing to him. It was Team Rocket that shot you, and Team Rocket were gone now, so why were you so angry? But Onyx, obviously not being able to speak English, was not saying anything. After shuffling around on enough rocks, Bruno was finally in a good enough position to be able to jump on Onyx's head, which he revealed as his plan. So he jumped on Onyx's head, which caused the Onyx to whap its tail back at him in an attempt to hit him, but he ended up just hitting his own head instead, which caused him to get confused and dizzy, causing Onyx to finally stop its rampage for a bit. Bruno takes this opportunity to jump off of Onyx's head and try and ask it again what it was feeling and what was making it so angry. This time, though, he knows that the Onyx obviously wasn't going to respond with words, so he uses his fucking meditation powers. That's right, I guess he wasn't an entire fraud after all. Being a fighting-type gym leader, he knew how to do some meditation, and when he meditates, he manages to feel that the Onyx was in pain and that there was something bothering it caught in one of its rocks. He continues to meditate as he proceeds to feel up all of Onyx's individual rocks until he comes across one and has a reaction as he sees something sticking out of it. So he tells Onyx to get ready to deal with some pain as he pulls a whole fucking sand slash out of one of Onyx's rocks. This causes the Onyx to wince in pain immensely, as fucking sand slash, that's like if you had a porcupine stuck in between your skin or some shit, like that would hurt. But Onyx's pain quickly subsides when the sand slash is fully taken out of it. When Ash spots the sand slash, he realizes that he's never really spotted one before, so he decides to take out his Pokedex and see what it was about. It essentially states how Sand Slash was the evolved form of Sandshrew, and if you got one of its quills stuck in you, then it would cause immense pain. Wow, thanks Pokedex, that's very obvious. But this does in fact reveal that the Sand Slash was the reason why the Onyx was so pissed off, as it was in pain, and you get pissed off when you're in pain. Grateful to finally be free from the Onyx himself, the Sandshrew waddles away as Bruno excitedly asks Onyx if it wanted to come with him, because remember, Bruno's whole goal here was to catch a giant Onyx. Thankfully for Bruno, the Onyx agrees, likely as thanks for Bruno saving it, and Bruno proceeds to catch Onyx inside a Pokeball. Bruno then jumps back up to where Ash and the gang were standing, and proceeds to leave, but not before saying two more things to Ash and the gang. The first one being the reveal that there was actually one true secret that Bruno had that made him successful, which was having a great bond with his Pokemon, which he noted that Ash and Pikachu also had, which he realized when they huddled together when the Onyx was about to attack them, and that's the whole reason why Bruno decided to save Ash in the first place, because he saw Ash and Pikachu's bond, aka, power of friendship wins again, yay! Ash and Pikachu just smile at each other, acknowledging this true bond of theirs, as Bruno takes his leave, saying his last statement, which was that he was anticipating an eventual battle with Ash whenever he got strong enough. Although that would likely take a long-ass time, Bruno, because Ash still has to beat the basic Pokemon League. The episode then ends with the reveal that Team Rocket had blasted off, not off the mountain, but to another location on the mountain, and this happened to be the location where all the other giant Onyx were located, and they were currently surrounded, about to be absolutely mauled by them. Damn. Don't worry, they'll be back next episode as usual.